It is Monday, which means another Mock Draft Monday here on the channel. Free agency has not come and gone necessarily, but a lot of the big signings have already happened. A lot of the big dominoes have fallen, except for some of these veteran quarterbacks. When is Aaron Rodgers going to make a decision? I think that impacts guys like Russell Wilson, guys like Jameis Winston, potentially. We don't have the answers yet, but day by day, more players continue to sign. The 2025 NFL season, at least from a roster standpoint, is really starting to come together. Of course, the NFL draft is a big part of that, and we are basing this mock draft off of a lot of what has happened through free agency so far. Of course, there will be more to happen that will change things, but I've hyped it up. I've talked about it. The Wheel of Chaos mock draft will be coming up soon. For now, this mock draft is more to focus on free agency kind of wrapping up. And we'll kick things off with the Titans at number 1. It does look like they're probably setting up to take a quarterback. It seems like Cam Ward is going to be most teams' QB1 in this draft, so I think there's a pretty good chance he is the first player off the board here. You have maybe some injury concern with Abdul Carter now. Travis Hunter is truly like a generational talent, cornerback and wide receiver. He's wide receiver and CB1 in this draft, and that's unbelievable. It's simply insane. But he's unlikely to go number 1 overall, and I think the Titans will opt to take the quarterback. It's the most valuable position in football. If they can develop him, it's going to be the best pick they can make here. And I think the Browns might have a similar idea at number 2, and I think Shedeur Sanders is in play to be the second player off the board here. If the Titans want to go quarterback, and if the Browns want to go quarterback, yeah, they brought in Kenny Pickett. Wow, okay. I think Shedeur Sanders is very much on the table, and I think the Browns are actually a really great landing spot for him. I know there's been some talk, really mostly media related, and a lot in my comment section about how, oh, Dion will never let Shedeur Sanders go to Cleveland. And I guess I could see Cleveland not being a super desirable location and media market. But at the end of the day, I think when you look at the offensive line and the receivers that are going to be there, and the head coach in Kevin Stefanski, I feel like there's not really a better landing spot for any quarterback here at the top of the draft. The Titans are not better. The Giants and Patriots are not better. I feel like of the quarterback-needy teams, no, that's really the best landing spot in my opinion. Maybe you can make an argument for the Jets with a pretty good offensive line and Garrett Wilson, but no, I think the Browns really have the best combination of everything, and they're picking at number 2. It seems crazy. Sanders is very accurate. He is the most accurate and maybe the best quarterback day 1 in this draft class. Ward probably with more potential. There are a lot of things to clean up with both of these quarterbacks, but Sanders really could be the first player that the Browns want even in this draft. Could be the second player off the board here. It could go QB, or we might see a massive Shedeur Sanders fall. I'll tell you this mock draft, a little bit more interesting than usual. I'm going to have maybe more than the typical 2 quarterbacks going in the first round. We'll talk about more when the time comes. Giants at number 3. BPA is a good argument between Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter here, but with both quarterbacks off the board, this would be my dream scenario as a Giants fan, by the way. I don't really want a QB in the first round of this draft if you can get either Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. Hunter, I talked about a little bit already. I think he's an incredible player. The Giants go out. They signed Paulson Adebo in free agency. That's an upgrade at 1 cornerback spot. Receiver, still a big position of need. And just altogether, I think Hunter is the best player here. I love Abdul Carter. I think edge is maybe less of a position of need for the Giants with hopefully a developing Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, obviously. You always need a rotation, but given the choice between Hunter and Carter here at 3, I think the Giants would lean the Colorado superstar 2-way player to set up the Patriots at number 4 for Abdul Carter. I mean, this is a guy that could go at number 1 or number 2 overall. Today, we're going back-to-back quarterbacks at the top. That leaves Abdul Carter falling to 4. We know the Patriots need to upgrade their pass rush in a big way, and they've made some steps in order to do that, kind of. Harold Landry, you can look at the counting stats. The advanced stats on him are very bad. And if you actually watch him as well, he's not very good. He simply puts no pressure on the quarterback. His sacks at this point are cleanup sacks. And for the people referencing his PFF run defense grade, you're not actually watching him play. The PFF grades are just not in a great spot ever. It's something where you really need to watch. And listen, I disagree with a lot of the grades, and I ask people who know more than me, and I say, hey, am I just incorrect here? And it's like, nope, I don't really see what's going on with the PFF grades either. So if you want to reference PFF grades like they're gospel for whether a player is good or not, or good at a certain thing or not, you're going to be in a pretty bad spot for how good that player actually is. I get Harold Landry uniting with Mike Vrabel, former Tennessee connection there, obviously now in New England, but Harold Landry has not been a top-tier player over the past couple of years, especially not last year. All that to say, Abdul Carter here would be a heck of a long-term upgrade, as the Jags, I think, are keyed in on Mason Graham. I think this makes a ton of sense. You look at all the things the Jags have done in free agency so far. They've made a lot of cuts. They've made a lot of signings. But what they have not really done at all is address the interior defensive line. And you look at an interview with James Gladstone, the new GM of the Jaguars, a.k.a. me, apparently, and he said, hey, you can't just go out and sign players at every position. You want to have a spot for those rookies to come in and play. And it just is screaming Mason Graham. I'd be shocked if he was not available at 5. I guess if the board falls a certain way, the Giants or Patriots could consider him, but I think that's very unlikely. I think it would have to start with like Cam Ward, I don't know, Travis Hunter, and then maybe the Giants would consider Graham over Carter to upgrade the interior over the edge. I don't know. I think he's going to 100% be here at 5. He's one of the better players in the class. It really seems like a no-brainer, given what the Jags have done this offseason so far, to set up the Raiders at number 6. I know I've been doing this a lot, but it's hard to get away from it. I think Ashton Jeanty just makes so much sense here to the Raiders at 6. They make a trade for Geno Smith. It's a massive trade. They still have a need at wide receiver, obviously, and Teteroa McMillan would be a good fit. There's no question about that. But Jeanty is truly one of the premier talents in this draft, one of the best 3 players in this draft. And you can get him here at 6. Running back, that value starting to creep back up. You see teams running more too high, bringing the safeties back to protect against the explosive pass plays. Well, that sets up the running game to get more effective, and we're kind of seeing the shift of power move back towards the running game to where it was for a really, really long time. Obviously, passing plays and especially explosive pass plays are going to be kind of, if you can complete those are the big game-changing type moments. But having a running back that you consistently can give the ball to 20-plus times a game to take the heat off the quarterback, and then, Geno, I think, is a plus starter. He's a top 15 guy in the league. I think that this would just set up the Raiders for a ton of offensive success. You can potentially grab a receiver down the board. And yes, I get that, okay, there are good running backs that you can find down the board, but I look at Ashton Jeanty, I kind of just view him as a tier above those guys. To me, it just makes way more sense to go best player available here, and I think that's very clearly Ashton Jeanty. As we get to the Jets, who's a very interesting pick here. Last week, I went with Armand Membu, the tackle from Mizzou. Kind of a fun rhyme there. Today, we are going to mix it up. I think there are a bunch of different options they could consider. Teteroa McMillan among them. I'm going to go with New York Jet of the future, Tyler Warren. You look at tight end, it's an upgradable position for the Jets. Warren is one of the probable best 5 players in the draft, so I don't really think this is too early for a tight end. You'll hear a lot of people say that. Oh, that's too early for a tight end. You need to consider it with the draft class. Oh, but Brock Bowers didn't go top 10. Well, the last year's draft class was not this year's draft class. And Brock Bowers had some questions with, okay, is he really an inline tight end? Is he just going to be a receiver, kind of a hybrid guy? He's a little bit undersized. Obviously, a tremendous receiver, and he was really productive for the Raiders. He's a great player, and that's maybe why the Raiders don't need a receiver. You have Jacoby Myers going to be healthy, and the offense kind of runs through Brock Bowers. Jeanty helps out. But for the Jets here, Tight end's a big need. Warren is, again, one of the best players in this draft. 6'6", 260, like classic inline tight end. Can be the focal point of the offense if the Jets want to do that. I feel like it's a really great pickup there, given what's available. As we get to the Panthers at 8, and I'm going Tetairoa McMillan at number 8. You hear Dave Canales and the Panthers talk about, okay, here was our kind of strategy going into free agency. Here's what we want to do. Here's what we did. We're still kind of missing this guy, the big-bodied X-style receiver, someone that with reliable hands, a big catch radius. It's Tetairoa McMillan here at 8 for the Panthers. I think this could very easily be defense. Their defense is one of the worst in the NFL, if not the worst by a mile, actually. However, if they're looking to kind of complete this offense and put all the pieces around Bryce Young to be successful, they got the offensive line in place. It's a good group now. Receiver, still kind of missing a Tetairoa McMillan type player. You get the big body, you have the big ability down the field, but after the catch a little bit too. I think he is the exact type of receiver the Panthers are looking for, and they find here at 8. And in a great defensive class, you can look to go edge maybe in round 2, maybe defensive back somewhere down the line, but linebacker still a need as well. But you could go edge with your third round pick. I don't know if the Panthers have a second round pick. I believe it's property of the Bears, but there will be talented edge rushers that find their way into the third round, like Princely Umanmielen could be there in round 3. Braden Swinson. I think either of the Ohio State guys could get there. We'll see, but they're really talented edge rushers. If you need to improve your pass rush, there are guys that can do it that will be there in round 3. So they go Tetairoa McMillan, get the big-bodied receiver as we move to the Saints at number 9, where we're going to go Jalen Walker. You know, I've been thinking more and more about this, and I actually was talking to somebody, a high-level person within Georgia, and a little bit of intel. Seems like Jalen Walker and Mike Williams are going anywhere from the 8 to 20 range. And obviously there's a little bit of wiggle room there. But, okay, I'm like, does that push Jalen Walker down the board a little bit? Heard the Miami Dolphins have interest in Jalen Walker, but don't necessarily know where they'd play him, which creates a bit of an interesting dynamic there. And that's from a reliable source. I can guarantee you. You'll find out more on that in a few months. But get the Saints at number 9. I think Jalen Walker is certainly in play. I think he fits the style of defense that Brandon Staley's going to want to be playing here. Attacking 3-4 Walker, I think his best role will be off the edge in the NFL. Explosive, powerful, insanely athletic, and still developing. You have definitely someone that can really impact the quarterback here, and also potentially be a quarterback spy, maybe a spot dropper at times. I know they bring back Chase Young. You have Carl Granderson. Walker gives you a developable piece that can also wear a bunch of different hats for you. So I feel like his versatility will make him valuable, and he is the pick there at number 9, given the way the board has fallen here for the Saints. Bears at 10, going with Armand Membou to step in somewhere on this offensive line. Yes, I know the Bears went out and got Jonah Jackson. They got a new center in Drew Dahlman. They make a trade for Joe Thuney as well. The interior seems to be great. And at right tackle, you have, of course, Darnell Wright. Why is Armand Membou the pick? 1, injuries happen all the time. Injuries happen at an insanely high rate. They do. I think Membou is certainly athletic enough to move over to left tackle if that's what you want to do. And there's an argument to be made that if you're just going to draft a left tackle here, Will Campbell's in play. But I think Membou is someone that you can develop to be a real plus player. If there's an injury, I think he can step in at left tackle, left guard, right guard. He's got that type of versatility. He's got that type of athleticism. And you just try to continue to build into that. So Membou, great player. One of the top 10 players in this draft, more than likely, with versatility to play either tackle or guard. We know that Bears' offensive line has not been great. They made a number of different moves in free agency in order to fix that. But we've also seen them go out and sign Nate Davis to play right guard, and that was a disaster signing. So you never know who's going to work out. You'd like to think that Joe Thuney and Jonah Jackson are going to be great. They're going to start every game. But Maybe they can't, and Membu needs to step in. Maybe Wright gets injured at right tackle or Braxton Jones at left tackle, and suddenly there's a massive hole. Membu helps plug that up in more ways than one. 49ers at 11, and that's just kind of also a product of the way the board has fallen here. Like, Will Campbell's certainly in play, but maybe you go D-line. It's an option, but I like Membu here at 10. At number 11, we are going to go defensive line. I've been talking him up a lot. I still view him very, very highly in this draft. It's Texas A&M Shamar Stewart. The 49ers have had a mass exodus. They've lost like everybody. This has been an insanely bad offseason in terms of keeping talent. They're freeing up a lot of money. I guess that's going to be used to pay Brock Purdy. There are questions about whether or not that's a good decision. But Shamar Stewart is a big body here. He's down to about 270. But really, really athletic, can play off the edge. You lose Leonard Floyd, it becomes even more of a need. I think you have a number of different options you can go with here, but Stewart gives you a little bit of versatility in the trenches to play off the edge, maybe slide inside on rush downs as well. You'd like to see him be a little heavier if he's going to do that, but his playing weight at A&M was listed at 290. So I'm not really sure what to think or make of Shamar Stewart. It seems like he's going to be able to add weight fairly easily if the team drafting him wants to go that direction. All I know, he's probably the best player available here for the 49ers at 11. Cowboys at 12. It's Will Campbell. I think they've had a Hall of Famer in Zach Martin play right guard for the last decade plus. And now you consider making a change. He retires. Will Campbell could potentially step in and be a plus guard. I know he's played left tackle at LSU. The arm length potentially pushes him inside, but I think also he just might be the best player here. He gives you some versatility on the offensive line. Again, kind of like the same deal with the Bears. Campbell might just be best player available, plus fills a position of need, plus gives you versatility to fill a bunch of different positions if there's an injury, which there always are in the trenches, especially on the offensive side of the ball. As we get to the Dolphins at 13, and I'm going to go Will Johnson. He's kind of been falling for me a little bit, but I still think he's one of the best players in the draft. You look at what the Dolphins currently have going on at corner, it's not a very inspiring group beyond Jalen Ramsey. It isn't. Yes, I like Kader Kohu. I think he's best as a nickel, and I worry about what else they have on the outside. Do you trust Cam Smith to step into a starting role? I know they have some other names in there, but I think Will Johnson can step in and potentially be a starter from day one. It's tough to turn that down at 13. The Dolphins have a number of different options here. Offensive line is tempting, but Will Johnson, again, might just be best player available. There are decent offensive linemen you can fill in these holes down the board. They went out, they signed James Daniels in free agency. I think Will Johnson makes a ton of sense here. I can see it being offensive line, no question, but maybe they view Patrick Paul very highly in the building. Tackle becomes less of a need. Maybe you think you can grab a guard on day 2. That becomes less of a need. Will Johnson might just be BPA, as we're going to go with a very similar approach here at 14 with the Colts. I'm going with Colston Loveland, more like Colton Loveland. Anyway, Chris Ballard loves his really good athletes. That's exactly what Colston Loveland is. You go out in free agency, you make big moves, big splashes at corner, at safety, getting Bynum and Ward, and still tight end remains a need. Get a really good athlete, arguably one of the 10 best players in this draft, Colston Loveland at 14. Get more weapons surrounding Anthony Richardson or Indiana Jones. Daniel Jones to the Colts now. If he's your starting quarterback, you are in trouble. As a Giants fan, I'm telling you, you are in trouble. But I know Anthony Richardson has a lot of haters. His consistency in the short and intermediate ranges of the field, it's not great. He's got a good deep ball. You can't live and die by the deep ball, and I get that. He's got to get better about completing the gimmies, not necessarily making the greatest throw of all time every time. And he has made some insane throws in the NFL, but also missed some layups. And I don't know, this is not exactly a one-for-one analogy, but you can't necessarily, be Steph Curry and not be able to make a layup. You know what I mean? And it's not like he's hitting at Steph Curry's rate. Or maybe he is probably, but it's obviously, it's tougher to shoot a 3 than it is complete a pass in the NFL, you'd hope. A 45% three-point shooter is incredible. 45% completion percentage is, Well, I guess the Indianapolis Colts starting quarterback. Anyway, Loveland's a great weapon for him. Gives him a security safety net over the middle of the field. But Loveland also might deal with players not being able to hit him. I say players because Davis Warren and Alex Orji at quarterback had a very tough time getting him the football in 2024. That has everybody down in Colston Loveland because his numbers were down. If the quarterback can't get you the ball, it's tough to be productive. At number 15, we have the Atlanta Falcons, and I actually really like this fit. They bring in Leonard Floyd. It still could be a pass rusher here. There's no question it could be. They also brought in an upgrade potentially at linebacker in the former Virginia Tech linebacker safety, goes to the Raiders now with the Falcons, Divine Diablo. I don't know that they're going to draft a linebacker at 15, even though I like Jahad Campbell. I'm going to go Malachi Starks. You lose Richie Grant. I think Malachi Starks can come in and be a starter next to Jesse Bates, who is also a pretty good comp for Malachi Starks. And you could say, well, are they not, if they're going to be, playing the same role, maybe he's not really a fit here. But I think Starks can very easily play strong safety. He's got such a great ability from too high. He's got such great ball skills, such great instincts. He's a great player, and I think that character, that leadership everyone talks about, I think that will push him up the board, especially when his 2023 film says this is a top 5 or 10 player in the draft comfortably. He goes here at 15, stays in state. It might be a bit early for him based on how the NFL typically values safeties, but I love him as a player, and I think from every report, teams love him as a person, and I think that does increase your value if they think you have a very limited bust potential because you're going to work harder, you're going to motivate your teammates, you're going to bring it on Sundays, Mondays, Thursdays, occasionally Fridays and Saturdays. Do we ever get Wednesday or Tuesday football? They're trying to do it on every day. They might. Cardinals at 16, going with Kelvin Banks. He's got the potential to play tackle or guard here. You look at what the Cardinals done in free agency. You upgrade the interior defensive line with Dalvin Tomlinson, edge with Josh Sweat, tackle, guard, still potentially needs, even with Jonah Williams and Paris Johnson Jr. Banks has the ability to come in and start at tackle or guard. And I think for the Cardinals at 16, that is a pretty good idea. As we get to the Bengals at 17, I'm going Walter Nolan here. He is one of the best players in this draft. In terms of potential, it's tough to find guys with more. He's got some great pass rush ability, needs to stay off the ground a little bit, but he's got some legitimate, huge potential. And I think when you look at the Bengals, who have just allocated $500 million plus to Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase, where are you going to find the money to pay the defense? Well, it's going to have to be in the draft for cheap, and you're going to have to, really hit on some players. And Walter Nolan has big-time upside, could present great value at 17, and teams pay for pass rush, right? Maybe they see a little bit of Geno Atkins to Walter Nolan's game. That's an insane comp because Geno Atkins is a Hall of Famer, or fringe Hall of Famer, right? But I think a Hall of Famer. Nolan has that, not maybe that same type of juice. He's obviously a little bit bigger, but he's got the same ability to rush the passer that gets defensive linemen paid. It's great if you can get a nose tackle with some pass rush upside, but the true pass rushers on the interior are the ones with the most value, and Nolan here at 17 could present immense value for Cincinnati. As we get to the Seahawks at 18, and I don't know how I haven't made this connection more, but Kenneth Grant to the Seahawks seems to make a lot of sense. There is a long-term upgrade needed on the interior defensive line. It's the Mike McDonald Michigan connection. Kenneth Grant, I think, is just an all-around really good fit for Seattle. I think his range is about this anyway. They could go a number of different directions. They're another team here in the NFC West that's lost a lot of talent recently, and by their own hand. I mean, they traded Geno Smith. They traded DK Metcalf. They cut Tyler Lockett. They're trying to get cheaper. They're trying to get younger. They're trying to get better. You bring in Sam Darnold. You sign Cooper Kupp. Hey, let's get another guy that excels in the slot. That's surely going to work. I don't know. JSN and Cooper Kupp's an interesting combo. It is. I think that they're both very good players, but will they be able to thrive within the same offense? We'll have to see. But we go defense here. We upgrade it with Kenneth Grant long-term. Nose tackle, really, with some good pass rush potential. At 19, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You bring in back Levante David for a little bit. You lose KJ Britt. He signed with the Dolphins, I think, earlier today. But Jahad Campbell's on the board. I still find this is one of the best fits in the draft. He gives you some potential as a pass rusher off the edge even. But I think learning from Levante David as an off-ball linebacker, where he doesn't even have to be the Mike this year, he can really just grow into the league. I think Campbell's got a ton of potential. I think he's a great player. Again, he's going to be a really highly ranked player for me in this draft. Top 10 or 15 for sure. I love him that much as a player. He's got that much potential. Bucks land him here at 19, and he can give you a little bit of pass rush with ability to play off ball. He's a fun fit. Broncos at 20. We are going with running back Amarion Hampton from UNC. And I know what you're thinking. No, not another UNC running back after the Javonte Williams experiment failed. My counter, why would that matter? They're different players. Congrats. They took some of the same classes, right? Pre-accounting. I don't know what they're taking. But Amarion Hampton is a different player to Javonte Williams. Yes, it's scary to see the same school, same position, same NFL team now. But Hampton's a great player. I think there's a lot of juice for him going inside the first round now. We know the Broncos want to upgrade that running back position, and Hampton is a way for them to do that at 21. With Loveland off the board, with Warren off the board. They decide not to go receiver, and they go with the running back from UNC, Amarion Hampton. At 21, Pittsburgh Steelers. I put it off for a really long time now. I genuinely really don't see it happening, but I didn't see it happening with Bo Nix, really. He goes at 12? I didn't really see it happening with Michael Penix. He goes at 8. I really don't see it happening with Jackson Dart. But if a team is going to take a quarterback in the middle of the first round that's getting a lot of hype right now, it might be the Steelers and Jackson Dart. There are some things to like about him. Apparently, he is well-liked in the locker room. He has gotten better every single year. There's some good athleticism there. He's got a decent arm. He's made a couple of nice throws, especially the one against Duke. I think there's a lot to clean up. And this is not an NFL offense, so it's going to be completely new for Jackson Dart. Will he be able to compete and produce in an NFL-style offense? The Arthur Smith offense here is going to be way different than the Lane Kiffin offense at Ole Miss. It's an interesting fit, but the Steelers do not have a quarterback. I don't think they're going to throw Mason Rudolph out there again to be their starter, so Jackson Dart ends up being the pick at 21. They got DK Metcalf. Things are in play maybe to take a quarterback, and Jackson Dart is the pick. 22, LA Chargers. Going to go Mykel Williams. I think edge very much in play. Williams has a ton of potential. He played hurt all year. He can only get better. He was already pretty good at Georgia. He's going to be a plus run defender. Still developing as a pass rusher, but we saw some dominant moments against Texas and some pretty good tackles there. Williams here, I think, will solidly go in the first round. Could go a lot higher than this, but I think the Chargers grab him at 22 in this iteration. As we get to the Packers at 23, they went out, they got a nickelback in Nate Hobbs from the Raiders, but will he play on the outside? Can Barron play on the outside? I'm going with the Thorpe Award winner, Hook'em Horns. Jahdae Barron is the pick. My favorite player at Texas. One of my favorite players of all time, really. And he's just that good. Nose for the football. He's great in zone. He's athletic enough to play man. He's undersized. There's no question. He's shorter. He's got shorter arms. Is that a great fit for this Green Bay defense? Well, if you're good enough, some of that stuff doesn't matter as much. Jair Alexander has made the most out of being a shorter corner. He's likely going to be gone. I think the Packers could really look to upgrade corner. They paid a ton of money to Aaron Banks in free agency. You highly doubt offensive line is in play here, but it is the Packers, so you never know. But Jahdae Barron is the pick to try and upgrade that secondary as we get to the Vikings at 24, where, I don't know. This is a pick I feel iffy about. You lose Cam Bynum, who's just a true free safety. Harrison Smith has the ability to play free safety, but maybe he's more of a strong safety at this point in his career. But that's what Nick Eamon-Worry is. I think that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, GM of the Vikings, is going to see a lot of similar traits he liked about Lewis Seen in Nick Eamon-Wari. However, I think Eamon-Wari is a better player, a better prospect, a better athlete. I think he's got better ability in coverage. I like Nick Eamon-Wari a lot. I think he's a fringe first-round talent, but certainly a first-round talent within this draft. He'll be a top 30 player for me, I imagine. And it's an interesting fit here with the Vikings. They could use a corner, potentially, right? They could still upgrade the defensive line, but with all the moves they've made in free agency to bring in Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave, you already have Andrew Van Ginkel off the edge, Jonathan Grenard off the edge, Dallas Turner was a first-round draft pick last year. I don't know that they're going to invest another really high pick to the defensive line. If they do, it would be the interior because you got some aging guys there now. Hargrave and Allen, they're aging. They're 30 plus. So you could go with a guy like Derek Harmon. But Eamon-Wari gives you a chance to upgrade the secondary. I don't think he's really a free safety, but he's a really good athlete. Can play strong safety, can play in the box. I think he can play in the nickel. Gives you some flexibility, some versatility, as we love to say. And the Vikings just maybe go BPA at 24. As we get to the Texans at 25, it really needs to be receiver or offensive tackle here. I think there's an outside shot. It's IDL with Derek Harmon available, Darius Alexander maybe, TJ Sanders. Like, there are some options here. But even after bringing in Christian Kirk, receivers a need with the injuries to Tank Dell. I think that Nico Collins has been banged up the past season. Receivers absolutely in play. It seems like they're going to play Titus Howard at right tackle and Blake Fisher at left tackle after trading away Laramie Tunsil. But with Josh Simmons on the board, he would be a tough player to pass up. You can develop him. He's coming back from a big injury, but again, has as much potential as almost anybody in this draft. He's a great player. Falls only due to injury. The Texans trade away a superstar left tackle, and they may land another one for the future with Simmons here at 25. And it's tough to say that, okay, this guy could be a plus starter, taking him at 25. But he's got that type of potential. And they opt to go with the tackle over the receiver as we get to the Rams at 26, where, I don't know, I was kind of split on this. I ended up settling on Max Hairston out of Kentucky. Obviously a tremendous athlete. Played a little bit hurt this past season at Kentucky, but has good man skills and is an exceptional athlete. Ran in the 4.2s. He was already like a fringe first-round guy. And when you talk to guys around the league, they say 15 to 60 is not incredibly different in terms of the players in this draft. So a guy that you think could go at the top of the third round could end up sneaking into the first, which creates chaos. It's going to be really interesting to see how this draft ends up shaping up to be. I think it's going to be chaos, but Maxwell Harrison could very easily sneak in here. There are some good corners available. I like Trey Amos. I love Savone Revel. Darian Porter's got plenty of potential. I like Azariah Thomas in the right system. Benjamin Morrison, when healthy, is a good player. But Harrison, with his upside, ends up being the corner we take here at 26. Setting up the Ravens at 27. Listen, I don't really want to go edge here because they've been like pretty productive. But look at all the talent off the board. James Pierce, Mike Green, Donovan Ezeraku. How can we not? Gonna go James Pierce. He's got unreal potential. He's got good size, still looking to add weight to that frame, and tremendous pass rush ability. Ran the 4.4s at the combine, but was clocked 23 plus miles per hour via the GPS at Tennessee, I think on a pick 6. He's a tremendous athlete. The speed plays. Like, his burst off the line is insane. And he's got real plus pass rush potential, double-digit sack type of guy. Ravens just have him fall into their lap at 27. And a similar thing happens with the Lions and Mike Green at 28. Very productive at Marshall. There are some questions about some previous allegations with Mike Green that could definitely end up hurting his stock. But the play, I don't think there's much of a potential there. He's such a good pass rusher despite being a little bit smaller, shorter arms, but he's so good as a run defender playing with leverage. Mike Green is a future NFL starter, and the Lions, don't want to get those two confused. The Lions could certainly use help off the edge. They're going to like the production of Mike Green. He's an easy pick there at 28, as we're going to see 3 edge rushers off the board in a row with Boston College Donovan Ezaraku, another highly productive player. You look at what the Commanders have off the edge right now. It's a position of need, and Ezaraku really, really fits here with the Bills at 29. At number 30, as the receivers are just sticking around, which is a little bit interesting. At number 30, though, we have the Buffalo Bills. I still feel like they need to upgrade their interior defensive line, and a guy like Derek Harmon, I think, should be a first-round pick. He's such a talented player. He's 310 plus pounds, ran a sub-5 in the 40, phenomenal for that size. He was incredibly productive this past season at Oregon, led all FBS interior defensive linemen in pressures. He's great. He's a pick here to Buffalo at 30, as you get to the Chiefs at 31. They signed a questionable deal. Jalen Moore to be their starting left tackle. Could receiver be in play? Maybe. I don't know. There have been some injuries. There are some question marks at that position. You lose DeAndre Hopkins. Could you go and double dip on Texas receivers? I know you don't necessarily look at receiver and think that's the biggest need for the Chiefs. Josh Connerly, I think, is very much in play here. There are some really good players available. There's no question. What do you do here if you are the Kansas City Chiefs? I think Ray Zabel's got a chance to come in and start at guard if Trey Smith leaves and Joe Thuney's gone. That's tempting. And I think we might end up doing it. You trade Joe Thuney to the Bears. You need to get younger and cheaper. And Gray Zabel is a dog. He's got the ability to come in and start at guard. Day one, some teams, of course, going to have him as a center. I think he could end up in the first round. And this is your Joe Thuney replacement. Now, I know the Chiefs have some things in place. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be Zabel here or any offensive lineman at 31, but I don't think it's a bad idea for the future. And Zabel here is the pick at 31 for me today. And then the Eagles to wrap things up at 32. They have so many different options. I think it's going to be really tough to turn down one of these receivers when that's potentially a need for them, especially in the slot. They're falling for me today, and it's really tough to go wrong. Burden with the after-catch ability. Emeka Ibuka does the dirty work and play in the slot, but so can Matthew Golden. I would hate this as a Texas fan. Of course, grew up in New Jersey, all my family in Texas, going to University of Texas, grew up a huge Longhorn fan, and I hate the Eagles with a passion. But at the end of the day, I think this is certainly in play for the Eagles with the way the board has fallen. Golden fell. We have not seen many receivers go in this draft. It was just Hunter at 3, if you want to call him that, McMillan at 8, and then nothing until 32. So Golden falls. Obviously tested really great at the combine. He can step in and play in the slot. He does not drop the football. He is a really good third option for this Eagles defense. And we know it's probably going to be something in the trenches, O-line or D-line. But maybe they do take the vanity pick here and go with Matthew Golden, who has great hands, route running ability to be productive on the outside or in the slot. The Eagles can get really creative. And it's not like, Olamide Zaccheaus or, Jahan Dotson making plays. It could be actually somebody very good. And that's what Matthew Golden projects to be at the next level. That's the Mock Draft Monday. Got a little bit interesting at times. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. I'm sure you will. And I will see you in the next one. Take it easy.